So today we're going to be dealing with legal holds, but really I'm using this as a use case to show how we can use some sort of lesser used components of workflow and FileHold for that matter, and sort of bring them together to actually use workflow to execute a legal hold policy. So we'll start off with a recap as to where we've gone, because I know this is part 5 of our series. So far, we've configured workflow settings and templates. We've associated those templates with a schema. We've initiated and completed a workflow. We've looked at reporting tool and advanced sessions. Now we're going to explore a practical use case for both main and supporting documents. So one of these functions that may have sort of been downplayed a little bit in the demo because they're not used as often, but today they're going to be the keystone of what we're doing, this idea between a main document and a supporting document that's going through a workflow. So today's case legal holds, just so people don't who are curious about a legal hold or a litigation hold, is where an organization needs to preserve all forms of potentially relevant information. This is done when a request for production for litigation is received or when there's potential for such information preservation. So you suspect that litigation may be in the coming, so you want to initialize a hold now to make sure nothing gets changed. A DMS normally allows users to check out documents and also to create new versions or allow authorized users or the system to delete content. So we can often have retention policies that will pull things out. The legal hold means that these activities must be prevented from happening by accident, by automated process, or by deliberate action, whether malicious or not. So it doesn't matter if you didn't have the intention of modifying a document or deleting something in there that was under a hold. You must have the system prevent that from happening. To not do that, whether you did it innocently or maliciously, it doesn't matter. You're still obligated to keep those documents. And so we need a tool to, disallow this. And a formal process is needed to preserve documents and records to ensure the organization meets the obligations of the legal hold. So workflow for legal holds. Documents under workflow cannot be deleted or modified, so putting a document or record into workflow can meet the obligations for a legal hold. So as long as a document is in a workflow process, it's suspended, so no actions can happen to it. There is one challenge. Workflow can mark a document as approved when completed. Now, since the end of a legal hold should require approval, makes sense for the nature of what we're doing, by approving the workflow, the document can be misleadingly approved as well. So we could have an innocent document that now is marked as approved, but that may not actually be the use case for that document. It might mean to be something else. We therefore need to add these documents as supporting documents, not main documents. Supporting documents are protected by the workflow, but are not marked as approved or reviewed by the completion of the workflow activity. So let's take a deeper look into what we're going to do today for the use case itself. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to assume that our organization has received some kind of legal hold request. We're then going to create an offline document inside of FileHold. Again, this is one-time activities. The next time you receive that legal hold, of course, you would simply enforce it by using the offline document type. We'll initialize a workflow onto that. We'll search for the content for that matter number. We'll then add that content as a supporting document into FileHold, into the workflow process. We'll wait for the legal matter to complete, which of course we'll just imagine months have gone by and we do in our session. We won't take that long in our recording. And then we're going to approve our workflow. And at that point, our legal hold will be released. So then we can let go of that. So that's going to be our process that we're going to build. So the activities we're going to do today, we're going to start off by creating our offline document schema for legal holds. We're going to create our workflow template for legal holds. We're going to associate the template with legal hold schema and automate that process. We're going to add our offline document, search for related documents and add them as supporting documents to our existing workflow, show documents under legal hold protection, complete the workflow, and show released content. So that's what we're going to be looking at today. It's a lot of things, but I know that because we've done so many of these other sessions, most of this should be familiar with everyone. So I'm not super worried. We're going to move quickly through this so that we can show just how simple it is to implement and then execute the workflow process. So let's take a look at the FileHold desktop application. We're going to start off with, as discussed, creating a schema for ourselves. So up under administration, library configuration, document schemas, and we'll use our blue plus sign to add a new schema. And we're going to, once my window pops up here, we're going to call this one legal holds. So now this is representing a process as opposed to a document. Yes, I could receive a legal hold document, but I want something that indicates the process, so how we're actually implementing that particular part of the project. So in this case, an offline document is what I'm going to use for this. Now I could use an actual electronic document or an electronic record for this, but I want this to be offline because I don't want the actual process to be managed by the document. I want the process to be managed independently. Offline documents are the perfect use case for this because they mean that I can still do all of those activities for a workflow, but I'm not actually associating it with something electronic. So it's a more powerful tool for that. We'll take membership as read. We're just going to be using it for ourselves today, but of course I would allow anybody who's going to be initializing a legal hold to be a member of this. For metadata fields, I'm going to be very simple about this. So we're going to, first of all, we want to try to find something that's going to control what this is referencing. Now, most of the time, these will have a matter number or a matter reference. So we'll just create a matter number metadata field here. And just to leave things open for myself, because oftentimes these will be out of my control, I'm going to make it a text field. I'm just going to go into my field properties here, and I'm going to increase that to 200 in case it's a title as opposed to a number. I'm still going to call it a matter number, but I'm going to make it a bit more open for myself so I have a bit more leverage with that. So we're going to say OK, and that's going to have our first field into there, and then we're going to want a start date and an end date. So I'm just going to take a look and see if I have that already. I may in my system. I do have a start date, and probably therefore I will also have an end date. So I've got my 3 fields there. Let's organize these. So I'm going to put my matter number on first. We're going to take our start date, and then we're going to take our end date. Now the end date, of course, is going to be an empty field. I don't necessarily need to have that one completed, but I definitely want to make sure that my matter number and start date are defined into there. The end date will come up later on. We're going to make the matter number a required field because I must put that into there just to indicate what the reference is the rest of the organization can use for that. Good. Next we'll go to our workflow tab. Nothing here yet, so I haven't built my workflow templates. We're going to have to come back and visit this later. Not using Courier, and then finally I'm just going to put a custom name onto this. So we're going to automatically rename the documents using the matter number and using the, let's use the start date for it. I'm also going to put a prefix on this of legal hold, so that when a document comes in, I know it's going to be legal hold, followed by the matter number, followed by, as indicated, the start date. So I've got that as required fields. Not going to worry about auto filing or event schedule or lookup or any of those functions. We will deal with that, later on if I was doing the full setup. But I think for today we have more than enough there. So let's go ahead and say OK to this, and that's going to build our new schema into the system. Good. We can close our schemas management window. Let's now build our workflow template for these. Now we're going to make a very simplified template here because in my case I'm not looking for something overly complicated because it's a fairly simple process that I'm doing. I want whoever adds legal hold document into there, I want the workflow to start with that, and I want it to end when they approve it, when they approve to end the legal hold on the document. So we're going to call this legal hold, again, just to keep things simple for myself. I'm not going to bother with I wouldn't often bother with a custom name, but we will in this case. So I'm going to do our name for it. We're going to, of course, call it our workflow name, followed by our document name. Just because it's going to be an offline document attached to it, makes the workflow a bit clearer to see into the system. So we'll say OK to that. Let's now add our activity. There's lots of other fields here I could fill it. I'm not going to bother with this, but we are going to add our activity. We're going to add a single activity to this. Let's just stretch this window up a tiny bit. There we go. So we're going to call this approve release of legal hold for associated documents and records. Good. Our approver for this, again, I would normally assign to somebody if I had a position, for example, like if I had head of legal or my legal counsel or something like that, I could have them as a participant in the activity. In this case, I'm just going to include the workflow initiators so that I myself, as the person who starts the workflow, can be the participant in this, and I don't have to sign in and out of my demonstration system here. My options is we're not going to allow checkout because there's no modifications that I want to make to this document. It could be one of X if it was going to a group of people. Someone on the legal counsel is going to sign this off. I just need one of them to do it. But again, we're not worried about that here. Definitely don't want to do main document to PDF. I could also allow an approval postponement onto this if I wanted to, but I don't want to do that in this case because sometimes postponement, especially if you have the restarting of the activities, the supporting documents are effectively released from that. So I don't want that to happen in this case. I want them to remain under that legal hold. So the approval postpone is not a great thing to have. Automation, in this case, I don't have anything onto there. And then I need a deadline for this. And this is one of the ones where I have no idea what this path is going to be. So I'm going to set this to 1 day, but I'm going to allow my initiator to make the changes to it. If I know litigation is going to be a simple and quick thing and I'm just holding these for 6 months and I can change the date to that when I initialize, if it's something that might be 10 years from now, I can put that into here as well. So I have lots of options as to how to control that due by date. And then finally, my task instructions. So please approve workflow task to release legal hold of documents and records. So simple piece of instructions are there, tells me what's happening. We have a clear path as to what we need to do. Perfect, so we're gonna say okay to that. Good, so now we built our legal hold into here, so we have that workflow template. Last thing we need to do is we need to associate that template with our schema. By the way, if I want to get to my most recently done schema, I just always click the head row here for last modified, puts my one at the top there. No hunting around to have to do into my list. Anytime I can get away with not thinking, I'm much happier as a worker. I'm gonna go over to my workflow tab over here. We're gonna add to schema, and again, click last modify at the top, choose my legal hold document type, and we're gonna add that. Good, so that's now here, and I want this to automate. So when I add my offline document in place, I want that legal hold to start immediately because I want that process to kick off as soon as it comes into here. I'm not going to bother hiding it because I want to make sure that anyone who's authorized to see this legal hold can in fact see this container for it. We have all the components that we need now, so we're going to say okay to this. And now we have built our schema, we've built our workflow template, we've associated the template with the schema. As I say, I'm moving quickly here, but this is nothing that we haven't discussed before in our session, so hopefully that all made sense as to what I did there for those activities. Good, let's close out our schemas management window. We're going to head back up to our inbox, and we're going to add our offline document. So I've received a piece of paper. Maybe I scan that and bring that into the system, but I've got my document that says you have an obligation to hold the documents related to a particular vendor that you're dealing with. So maybe there's a lawsuit going on with the vendor. Perfect. So I need to preserve those documents. So let's first of all start off by starting our workflow in our document. So we're going to set our metadata, open up our side window here. We're going to choose our legal hold offline document type. And now we can complete our fields. You notice the matter number has our asterisk beside it because it's a required field. So we're going to call this Anconia lawsuit, right? So we're going to simple matter number name. I know what it is. You can see associated with it. We're going to choose today's date for this, and we're not going to use an end date for it. I'm going to leave that one open because when I close this, that's when I might update that field. That's great. We're going to go ahead and save that. We'll notice that we'll still have information required on this for the status, because I don't have a location for this is going to live yet. We're just going to go ahead and put this into a testing folder for today's purposes, because it's not as important that I'm dealing with a specific location for this. Let's just expand my primary cabinet there. Great, we're going to drop this into my number one cabinet. Because remember, it doesn't matter where it would go to for attachment, as long as I got that in the right place for it. So we're good. We're going to send that into the system by clicking Send All. And our legal hold is now into place. Now, if I've built my workflow right, and by the way, I didn't test any of this before, and we've all seen what's here. So if I did that correctly, I should see a task here under my tasks list to get that workflow to approve off. And good news, it's there. So I can see there's my legal hold workflow that's in place and ready for me to execute moving forward. All right. So we've done our first part of it. We've built our template. We've started our workflow process. Now let's find our associated documents. So I want to find everything that relates to Anconia. So I'm going to go to my save search I have over here. So hopefully people know how to do save searches. If you don't, please let me know. I've got my save search here for vendor name, and we're going to look for Anconia. And we're now going to run our search. Now I'm looking through my entire system. And again, I'm looking at all the documents that I'm eligible to see, and I found a bunch of my invoices into here. Now, if I right-click on any one of these documents and go down to Workflow here, we'll see that I don't have anything related to a legal hold here. If I did, I first of all would have to have that legal hold template, workflow template associated with my schema for the documents, which I do not have. In this case, I'm going to add these documents to an existing workflow. But I don't want to add just one of them. I want to add all of them. So I'm going to select my first one. I'm going to hold Shift and select my last one. We'll now right-click, do the same thing, Workflow, and we're going to add to an existing workflow. Good. So now it's going to pop up and ask me, what do I want to do with this? And it gives me some options here. First of all, it gives me a list of filters. If I had, 80 different workflows happening, I'd be overwhelmed my list here and trying to find things. Maybe I don't have my naming conventions proper or something like that, and I have to do a lot of shifting, a lot of looking for the wheat in this chaff. So the filter up here allows me to see things that are either active or that have been postponed and initiated by me. So I can see different sort of filters on this. In this case, the active workflow tasks assigned to me is ideal because I'm the one who initiated this. And I can add the selected documents as main documents or as supporting documents. So we're going to choose the supporting documents option here. Now I'll note that if I chose main documents, it would have given me an error coming back because I don't have these documents as the schema for these, so I can't force them into that particular workflow path. But in this case, the supporting documents, there's no issues with that. So now we're going to go ahead and say OK. So I've now put those documents into a workflow effectively by having them approved here. By the way, if you're wondering what the case on this might be, you'll notice that one of my invoices here is a dramatically different price than everything else. Maybe this is under dispute, and that's why I want to preserve these, because I want to demonstrate that one of my invoices here was radically different than the others. Let's go ahead and select one of my documents. Remember, I'm a system administrator, so when I select a document, I expect to be able to do things like delete it. But here I can't because there's no delete option for this. But if I look down over here, there's no change in the library status. There's nothing here that's saying that I am not allowed to do anything to this because I don't see the same thing as I might if it was a checked out documents. That is typical for what we're seeing for when we're dealing with a supporting document, because it's merely supporting. I don't need to see that because it's not going to bear the same marks. It's protected, but it's not hidden. All right, let's go up to the My Tasks. So again, we've seen this before. We go up to our My Tasks section, and our our workflow is going to appear onto here. There's our document in process, and then here are all of our documents. And notice my last one here is my offline document. That's the offline document symbol there. So if you're ever looking for that, that's the symbol. So it looks like that piece of paper with a dot on it. And the rest of these are all supporting documents, except for that one, which is the main document. So this is the document that gets approved. These are the ones that support this particular document. And that is the purpose behind this legal hold workflow, to preserve these documents, hold them into place, and make sure no changes can happen to them. Now, other users can't modify this. So you'll notice that over here, I've got the checkout button that's been released. So this document can't be checked out. And if someone selects it and is wondering why, they're not going to see that it's been checked out because it hasn't been. It's simply in that suspension for legal hold. But again, we're applying some of these protections against my content. Great. So I've got my documents and records. Let's go ahead now and complete our workflow just like we might any other sort of document that comes through. So we'll go up to our thumbs up. We'll click the thumbs up icon to indicate that I approve this, because we can imagine some time has passed. We're now ready to sign off on this workflow because everything's good for it. So I've got my task instructions onto here. If I scroll down, we can see the workflow where I can see all of my supporting documents that were added and who did it and when. So that's great. Let's go ahead and complete our approval onto this. And I've just realized I need to grab another piece of information here, which is my password. So I'm just going to grab that out of my password manager, put that into here, and my approval's been submitted. My workflow tasks are now empty. So if I want to now see what my status is in any of these documents, I'm going to go back and look at my source document. By the way, if I don't want to go down here and browse through this folder, I'm just going to go back up to the My FileHold section. We're going to click on Recently Added. And there's my document into here. Notice that it no longer has a protection on it. So this document is deletable. This document is potentially able to be checked out because the approval process on this has been completed. So I don't see any of my legal holds onto this. And when I look at, here's one of my Anconia documents, my delete option has been returned because I've released my legal hold. These documents are now eligible to be modified or deleted where appropriate by the user. Now, if you want to see the workflow status report, which I think is a more interesting part of this, let's take a look at the details for this. So here's my activity singular document. I didn't put any notes into it. Obviously, I could have, but I didn't, so that's why there's no comments onto this. And if I show the documents for this, it again shows me that here's my main document and here's my supporting documents, which is something that I can present as evidence if somebody asks for, what measures did you take to protect these documents? Well, these are the measures that I took. I put these under a legal hold workflow. I ran the workflow through and I executed it. So we're seeing all the parts of our puzzle now put together. We've seen how to create the workflow template, how to create the document schema that we need to for that offline document. We're using that offline document type as the main document. We're using the documents that are actually under the legal hold itself as supporting documents, which means that they don't have to be part of the workflow template, should not be part of the schema in that case. And I can bring all those documents over and have my workflow protect these documents while we're going through the legal hold process.